Hello and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve and my wildcard is active in blank game week 34 and I'm using it to get rid of my 10 blanking players, well 11 if you count Greaves on the bench, but I'm also using it to set up for a bench boost which is most likely going to be deployed in game week 36. So as you can tell, I'm on a little bit of a different strategy to most managers out there. Now, I used my triple captain in game week 24 on Salah for his 29 points. I then used my free hit in game week 29 in order to hold my team through the blank, which has earned me 5 green arrows in a row, halving my rank from 1.4 million all the way up to 730k. I'm still climbing back from the pits of hell as I fell to 4.2 million by game week 11 with a horror start to the season. But we have managed to climb our way back up to 730k. I then activated my assistant manager in game week 31, and it was active for its final game week in game week 33 just gone, which helped contribute to my score of 83 points this week. Now, I did end up switching from Glasner across to Pep Guardiola, having been very unhappy with Palace's performances, conceding 10 goals in the 2 games across the double in the game week prior. Of course, it wasn't helped by substitutions of Mateta off at half-time for Hughes to go on at 2-2 against City. Now, Pep did come out 3 points better off than Glasner. Palace actually pulled in some results across the double, who I did transfer away from. So I did earn an extra 3 points. But crucially, I did use a transfer to make this move, which is probably going to cost me a hit in game week 37, and I've only gained 3 points from it. So maybe a good transfer, maybe not. I guess we will wait and see. So I scored 83 points this week, boosting me up another 170k in game week 33. It could have been so much more, though. I went with Saka in, and I captained him, thinking he was going to start against Ipswich and hopefully get 60 to 75 minutes. He could have had a hat-trick in that game. Man, he missed some goals. He was then benched against Palace in the second game, only coming on for the last half an hour, but he also could have scored a goal in that as well. I mean, it could have been an absolute monster haul for Saka. But I mean, the reason that I did think he was going to start these matches, I thought he was going to start both matches, but he did only get one. But it was because he'd been out for so long. He was likely to be quite rusty, and they would want to get him up to speed for the tough games that are upcoming. And it just goes to show, I mean, he missed some goals in that Ipswich match. But it was actually Trossard who was the differential player that I needed to bring in, as he scored 24 points in double game week 33. Congratulations to all of you out there who had him. Massive differential, huge score. Man, if I had bought him in and captained him, I would have been well up the ranks. I mean, even if Saka got his hat-trick and goal, I mean, that would have been huge points, very low ownership, and I don't think many people had him captain last week. But anyway, it's been a rough season, but I'm still focused on putting some respectability back into my final rank. I'm now roughly 60 to 65 points away from 250k with 5 game weeks to go. I do have my wildcard active and a bench boost still to come. But to be honest, I haven't made it easy on myself, as this is probably the toughest wildcard I've had to construct in quite a few seasons. So we'll kind of cut it short on the scores for the game weeks. I mean, I was stoked that Mateta came on and scored a goal. That was some huge points, much needed. Did get a little bit lucky in here. Eze came away with 10-pointer with his 1 goal. I mean, there were some clean sheets around the place, but largely it wasn't a great week. I left Dean Hoyson on the bench for his 8 points as well, who I could have had in place of Livramento. Probably should have thought about that a little bit more, but it is what it is. Anyway, we move on to the wild card. Now, I'm going to bring up FPL.team here because the website that I have been using. So I did write... Last season, I wrote in all the rules to calculate when the doubles would fall, who was still had a chance to double, who had a plan to blank, and I put all the rules in for what the Premier League usually use for scheduling for the FA Cup. And of course, this season they go and change all those rules, and now all those rules in the system are not up to date. And I haven't had time to go in and fix them because I have been doing some contracting work. So we'll have to use some screenshots from Ben Crellin's transfer planner and FPL.team to kind of show what I am constructing for this wildcard. But the first thing, I'll bring it up on screen so you could kind of have a little bit of a look at it. But the first thing we'll go through is the difficult choices that do arise wildcarding in this blank game week. Now, the plan was to use the wildcard to deal with the blank and set up for a bench boost in game week 36. Now, unfortunately, we're not going to know who's doubling until after the game week 34 deadline. So we kind of have to guess as to which teams are going to double. But to further complicate things, every team that does double in game week 36 will blank in game week 37. There's also no real way to set up a bench boost full of doubling players. Now, I know there have been a few bench boosts floating around in game weeks 32 and 33, and those bench boosts also weren't full of doubling players. Now, I did identify this way earlier in the season, thinking we're probably going to have to bench boost in a single game week, the way that everything is kind of falling in place, especially with the addition of the assistant manager chip, as we now have one more chip to play with. But there is no way to get a full bench boost full of doublers. Now, also, we don't actually know for certain that there are going to be doubles because the Premier League does have a couple of options for how they might schedule in these fixtures. They might actually push the game week 37 fixtures into the midweek game slots around game week 37, which would actually still fall in the deadline of game week 37 and mean that there would be no double and no blank. So we're not even sure if there are going to be doubles, but of course they could also pull them forward into game week 36, like what is being shown on screen here in the Ben Crellin's fixture ticker. But if they are pulled forward, then every single team that does double will then blank in game week 37. So we have to kind of prepare for both eventualities. Any team that is doubling might also be subject to rotation out there as well. So we are kind of looking for the more nailed-on players to fit into the team to try and reduce the likelihood of rotation through game weeks 36 and 37. And to further make it even more difficult, I am also competing with a whole bunch of free hits this week, as everyone else is on what seems to be the go-to strategy for, or at least a lot of the content creators out there on YouTube. They are all free hitting this week. And so I do need to block some key assets while still having an eye on the final run-in to game week 38. Now, okay, so the first most difficult thing on the wild card is the goalkeepers. They are actually super tough to try and figure out. Now, if I want to bench boost with 2 doubling keepers in game week 36, assuming that they do double, then I won't actually have a keeper playing in game week 37. Now, I could set up for that and use a transfer in game week 37 to get rid of a goalkeeper and buy in someone else. But a transfer on a goalkeeper does have a pretty limited ceiling, unless, of course, they save some sort of penalty in the game. I mean, considering I am bench boosting, I could pick up I could just aim to have 2 doubling keepers and then just play with 10 men in game week 37 and just kill off the goalkeeper spot, which is also a possibility, and I haven't fully decided on exactly how that's going to work out. But at the moment, the two keepers that I've gone with is Martinez and Sels. So if we look forward to the most likely doubling teams is going to be Spurs versus Villa in here, which would give Spurs a double and Aston Villa a double. Aston Villa has one of the best doubles from a defensive standpoint next to Man City, who would have Southampton and Bournemouth if they in fact double. But of course, neither of these teams play in game week 34, so I can't put in Martinez and Ortega. Of course, Ortega is playing at the moment. We don't know how long Edison is out for, and so we don't even know if Edison is going to be back before the double in double game week 38, even if there is a double in double game week 36. So I kind of just have to say no to the Man City goalkeeper, which kind of just leaves Martinez as the best goalkeeper with the most likelihood of doubling in game week 36, which means that the other goalkeeper that I do put in needs to be playing in game week 34. And so the options here are Vicario, who's away to Liverpool in game week 34 and has an okay double in game week 36 if they happen to double, which would be at home to Palace and away to Villa. But Spurs have been terrible from a defensive point of view all season, so I don't want Vicario away to Liverpool, and I don't really even want to prioritize them in from the defensive point of view in that double. So there's also Bournemouth, who are also quite likely to double, but their defensive fixtures in game week 36 are also pretty bad. Aston Villa at home and Man City away. They also have to play Arsenal in game week 35, but to be honest, I'll probably just be rolling out Martinez against Fulham at home. And so what I've currently settled on is Sels from Nottingham Forest, who's got Brentford at home this week. Probably won't double in game week 36, but they will be playing Leicester at home as a single game week fixture, which is a good single game week fixture. West Ham in game week 37 is also a pretty good fixture to play him in with Martinez blanking, as that Tottenham fixture will be removed. So that kind of works out. The other one I was sort of flirting with was maybe Jose Sarr from Wolves, who has Leicester at home this week and then Brighton at home in game week 36. But he is currently flagged in FPL. So at the moment, we've got Sels and Martinez. Sels at home to Brentford this week, and Martinez in for the doubles in game week 37. Some other questions that I do have to keep in mind on this wildcard is, do I keep a spot for Haaland? Now, at the moment, this wildcard does have 6 million sitting in the bank in order to jump from Isak up to Haaland if Haaland is back before that double in game week 36, should I choose to go there. Alternatively, I might look at someone like De Bruyne in game week 36, which that 6 million will easily cover as well. So you kind of need to leave a little bit of flexibility to jump on some different players as we head in. Now, this is also trying to build for the bench boost in game week 36. So I'll just quickly talk through the teams. So it'll be Sels and net this week. I've got triple Newcastle at the moment, but this is still up in the air. They're all at home to Ipswich this week, which is a great fixture, but it gets a little bit trickier further down the line. Dean Huijsen has a probable double in game week 36 and is at home to Manchester United. I don't think that's a tough game at all at the moment, so I don't mind playing him this week. I do have Ait-Nouri in here at the moment as well. He will probably stick, as I will only be using him this week and in the bench boost where he plays Brighton at home in game week 36. I'll roll the ticker forward in a second. Holding on to Salah, who will be my captain. Mbeumo has a great run of fixtures up until the end of the season. I mean, Nottingham Forest's a little bit tricky away this week, but then it's Man United at home, Ipswich away, Fulham at home, And then Wolves away on the last day of the season. I have to bring Mbeumo in. He is locked into the team. Jacob Murphy is in at the moment. I am unsettled on the spot right now. There are a few options out there, but the spot is basically going to be there for just game weeks 34 and 35, and I will likely use that spot to pivot in game week 36 when the doubles do occur, if they do occur. Clivert is in as well. This one's a little bit, I mean, he's on pens, he's nailed. There is a potential double for Bournemouth, but it's against Villa and City. Hopefully, if City are doubling, because they're into some final competitions, I mean, they might be mass rotation in that game. They do have Leicester on the final day of the season as well, at home, and so I think I just kind of have to take Clivert in and just know we've got Arsenal and Man City. I think I'm benching Clivert against Arsenal the following week. But anyway, hold on to Isak. He might become Haaland in a couple of game weeks' time. We've got Wood in here at the moment as well. Home to Brentford this week, away to Palace. Then in game week 36, when I'll be bench boosting, at home to Leicester, huge fixture. Then away to West Ham, who have been shipping goals all season, but then it's a tricky game the final day of the season at home to Chelsea. And then at the moment, I also have Cunha in here at home to Leicester. This spot is probably going to change, though. I think I'm going to switch him across to Wissa from Brentford, because whoever I have in this spot will have to play game weeks 34, 35, and 36. And next week, Wolves do have Man City. And then on the bench, I've got Martinez for the double, Gvardiol and Ruben Dias for their potential double in game week 36. Even if they don't double, I mean, City have got a pretty good run of fixtures for the end of the season. So if these all turn into single game weeks, it's Wolves at home, Southampton away, Bournemouth at home, and then Fulham away for the last 2, 3, 4 games of the season after game week 34, so kind of have to have them in. Rodgers in for the double for some sort of Aston Villa coverage. And then you roll it forward to 35, try to make no transfers. We bench our Bournemouth assets away to Arsenal and 8 Nuri away to Man City. Does mean that I will have to play Cunha away to Man City if I do decide to block that Leicester fixture, which basically everyone's going to have Cunha on a free hit for Leicester at home. I mean, that's a huge game, and Cunha could definitely do some damage. Don't know who I'll captain here, but this is kind of how it's set up. Most players have a pretty okay game. We've got, home to Fulham, away to Brighton, home to Wolves, home to United, home to Fulham, away to Palace, and Salah away to Chelsea. So this week's not too tough. Then you roll forward to game week 36 when the doubles are in the week, which I will be bench boosting. I did leave 6 million in the bank, which is enough to go from Isak straight to Haaland if he happens to be back at this point, leaving me 0.4 million in the bank. We'll have doublers of Martinez, Huijsen, Gvardiol, Ruben Dias. We will still have Salah. He's just going to stand for the rest of the season, I think, probably. Mbeumo away to Ipswich. Clivert with a double, Rodgers with a double, Haaland if he's there with a double, otherwise it'll be Isak at home to Chelsea. Wood at home to Leicester. Cunha does have a pretty good game in this game week at home to Brighton, but he did have to play Man City in the previous game week, whereas if I went with Wissa, he would be away to Ipswich and would be at home to Man United in game week 35, which I think is where I'm probably going to go. Sells is there on the bench boost at home to Leicester, but then we've got 8 Nuri at home to Brighton. It is a home fixture. Wolves are not great defensively. 8 Nuri does come with some attacking threat, but it's not a great game. And then if I do happen to start with both Newcastle players, or 3 Newcastle players against Ipswich in the blank game week 34, it only leaves me 1 transfer after having bought Haaland or potentially Kevin De Bruyne, depending if Haaland is out, or maybe even Marmoush. Although I think I'm probably going to go against Marmoush for the rest of the season and see if I can gain rank by going against Marmoush. So I'll have one more free transfer in game week 36 to maybe avoid Livramento at home to Chelsea or Murphy at home to Chelsea. But if I do go selling one of those players for a doubling asset, that doubling asset will then blank in game week 37. So if I make no more transfers and roll forward to game week 37, now this is going to be a tough game week no matter which chip strategy you are on. It's going to be tough to deal with. Those Newcastle lads that I did bring in the blank would then have Arsenal away. Newcastle could always get a result against Arsenal for sure, but it's not the kind of fixture that you'd really want to target. I would have Haaland blanking, Kluivert blanking, and Ruben Dias blanking, and all of my bench blanking, but I would have 2 free transfers. So I could go, Haaland out to a striker, or maybe even bench Haaland and save him for the last game week of the season if he is back. Use that 0.4 million to maybe upgrade Rodgers. But you can't go too far. You're looking at like 5.8 million. Not entirely certain where you would go there. And then you would have one more transfer to deal with a defender, maybe Dean Huijsen, and then you'd be playing with 10 men without taking a hit in game week 37, and also needing those 2 Newcastle lads to have a difficult game away to Arsenal. And I mean, the rest of the team, there's a lot of players playing away here. I know Cunha's still in. So if this was Vissa, obviously Fulham at home also looks like a pretty decent fixture, which is why I am seriously considering going Vissa over Cunha. But it's tough. Like, the game week 37 looks like a horrible game week all around. And then game week 38, I actually have a benching headache. I mean, I could look to potentially delay the bench boost until game week 38. But game week 38, a lot of teams are on the beach. There is sometimes rotation for the last games of the season, especially in teams where, it's not really going to change the result. They might get some players off the bench. It's tough, but this is currently where I'm at. So if I just come back to game week 34 for the immediate wildcard, these Newcastle players do have a great fixture at home to Ipswich, but if I do that, I'm probably selling them later and maybe even potentially for hits. So they will have to do some damage against Ipswich in game week 34 and game week 35 before I potentially move them on in game week 36 while I'm bench boosting. But even if I move them on, I might be moving them to single game week players, because if I buy another doubler, then I'm just buying a player that's going to blank in game week 37, unless I really go like balls to the wall and just start taking hits and just, bring in a doubler, knowing that they just have to smash it in that double game week. And then I'll use some of those points to then sell them on again in game week 37 while those players are blanking, and just hope that the players that I bring in also smash it. A lot of things have to go right here. I need like 60 to 65 odd points to get me up to around 250k by the end of the season, which would be pretty good going considering I fell all the way to 4.2 million very early on in the season, missing out on some monster hauls from Palmer and Salah. It's tough. I don't know exactly where I'm going to land, but I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Is anyone else out there wildcarding this game week? I suspect not. I suspect a lot of you are probably free hitting and maybe wildcarding in game week 35 if you do still have both chips left. But if you've got any thoughts or where I might head with some of these players, definitely let me know in the comments below. But alright, well that wraps up this video. So don't forget to like and subscribe and leave us a comment to tell us what you think. Good luck for the game week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.